Shut up and sit down.
Welcome to the Health and Wealth Podcast with your hosts, Tim and Carter.
What's trending, Enrichers? Carter Wilcoxon, founder of CSI Financial Group here, with my co-host and former wealth advisor, Tim James, founder of
ChemicalFreeBody.com and your new health advisor. This is the show where we reveal the connection between physical and financial abundance.
Hey, hello, Enrichers. Carter Wilcoxon here. Thank you again for joining us for another Health and Wealth Podcast show. I'm joined here with my co-host, Mr. Chemical Free Body himself, Tim James.
Hey, Carter, what's going on today?
Well, buddy, I'm super excited about our guest that we have with us today because, as you know, everything we do at CSI Financial Group is all about client acquisition and client retention, and ultimately leveraging technology and embracing fully digital transformation or the digital age that we're actually all in today. So anyway.
Well, man, I'm excited to have Diane on too, because pre-show we got to chat it up a little bit, and she's doing something that most people don't even know about, but she used to be a doula, or was training to be a doula.
Yeah.
And what a wonderful profession that is. And that is just amazing. And like, I think everybody for childbirth should have a doula. That's where we need to go for birthing. I mean, there's no question about it. I actually I need to get a doula on my show, on my other show, because we're all about health on the other show. This one's health and wealth.
Yes.
But so maybe we can chat about that a little bit later. That'll be really cool. So I really appreciate you being on the show. And I know we're going to be talking about some really cool tech and what your company's doing at Snappy Kraken.
Yes.
To push and help the advisors, because I was one and I had like no tech savvy whatsoever. My goal was to throw my phone in the lake actually at one point. And now that I have an e-commerce business, I had to drink from a fire hose and learn all this stuff. But what you're doing, it's necessary today. I mean, just because you're a financial advisor, you really, if you don't have like these tools that you guys are going to share today, you're really, it's like you're a buggy maker and Henry Ford's made the Model T, and you could have a really good buggy, but guess what? You're going to be left behind in the dust, literally. So anyway, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks so much for that welcome. I'm excited to be here with the both of you.
Yeah, so Diana Cabrices, as we were pre-show talking about exactly how to pronounce your last name. My last name, Wilcoxon, gets chopped up and has for the longest time. But,
yeah.
Diana, we really are excited in having you talk a lot about, especially in the second segment, on what CSI Financial Group and Snappy Kraken are doing as a strategic partner and everything. But before we get started, our audience, our enrichers, as we call them, they want to get to know our guests. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you back in time a little bit, and which, I know you're fairly young, so it's not going too far back. Tim and I, right? We're creeping up on a half century old. So what I'm wondering is, for our enrichers, they want to know, I believe you're a millennial. I think you're in that category, right?
I am.
Yeah. So
proudly,
of course. So why don't you share a little bit of, your story and your progress and how you ultimately ended up at Snappy Kraken? Is this something that, early on, I know I've got kids that are fairly young. They grew up with technology. They don't know any different but technology and everything. But talk a little bit about, what got you into, the technological realm, and then ultimately what got you to Snappy Kraken.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I did grow up on the computer as a young girl, all throughout, my teenage years and before and beyond. It was like we always had a computer. And even from a young age, I learned how to type really fast. I was always very much into technology. But it wasn't until I graduated college and I'm like, well, I definitely don't want to work in an office. So where do I work? And I didn't know the answer. And so instead of all my peers going into the workforce right away and getting a random job in an office, I sold all my stuff and I decided to take off and travel the world. So I took off to Europe. I was in Madrid first. Then I went across all these countries and ended up in Barcelona, living there for 2 years. And I got some job, under the table teaching English. I'd never taught English before. And I was like, well, I better learn how to teach English. So that's why my grammar skills are so on point these days. I had to teach myself how to teach English. And I realized, after a while, making 400 euros a month was just not cutting it. So I needed to figure out a way to make money, but still travel. And for me, that was remote work, which I have done since then. And I love remote work, but in finding a remote job, I just, searched the internet, scoured the internet for positions that were somewhat related to, the degree I got, which I got a business degree in economics. So I started thinking, okay, what about the finance world? Well, what about business and remote? And then literally it just all meshed together as fintech. And that was my foot in the door to fintech. And that was about, at this point, 6-7 years ago. And I started working for a fintech firm that helped advisors buy, sell, and merge their practices. It's kind of like an online dating site for financial advisors. That was a lot of fun. After a few years, though, I realized I also need something fun. So for me, mergers and acquisitions wasn't that fun. And then I stumbled across Snappy Kraken. And I found them at a conference. Actually, it was an inside retirement conference. And I was like, oh my God, their booth is rocking. And that is so my vibe and my style. So I ended up at Snappy Kraken, and that was 2 years ago. And now I'm loving it. I love everything we stand for, how much we help advisors, and how much fun you can really have in the world of sales and marketing. So that's a little background on me. I mean, we can go even further back if you want, Carter, but as far as fintech, that's where it starts.
Yeah, no, and that makes sense. So I am interested. I have, fairly young kids, again, that I said have always had technology in their life and in their world and everything. They don't know any different. But even for most people, social media still is fairly new and young. Is that an avenue that you were attracted to with regard to getting your degree at? And I'm sorry, what college did you end up going to as well, if you don't mind talking a little bit about that?
Totally, yeah. So I went to Georgia State University, Panther alumni, heart of downtown Atlanta. That was a lot of fun. And, really, yeah, social media was always pretty attractive to me. I love, getting online, being social, posting content. But I knew, because I didn't go down the marketing path with my degree, which is, what a lot of my friends did that have kind of a similar personality to me, very social, outgoing. I knew I'd have to learn this in the trenches, in the ropes with any sort of company that was willing to teach me. And it's so good that I did it that way, Carter, because you learn so much more just through practice when it comes to marketing. So the experts I get to work with at Snappy Kraken, they've just taught me so much along the way. But yeah, I'd say there was always an interest in social media, in connecting. I'm kind of one of those people that always likes to know what's going on in the world. And the best way for you to do that and know is to be connected online.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm going to ask you, now that I know you went to Georgia State, I'm going to ask you, this will be sort of interesting, I think, depending on your answer, but how many times when you were in college did you visit varsity?
That is so funny that you asked me, because I'm going to give you my honest answer.
Okay.
I never went to the varsity once.
Wow.
I was one of the different ones that just every time there was an opportunity to go, something came up and I just never went. I've certainly eaten the food, but I never sat at the restaurant. So maybe that wasn't the answer you were expecting, but no. I never went.
What's interesting about that is that I've been to the varsity one time and that's all I needed. It's kind of like when I went to Rome, it's like, hey, that's 2,000 years old. Hey, this is 2,000, everything's ancient. I went to Rome one time and I'm like, all right, I can check that off the list. I don't know if I'll ever go back to Rome again. Now, I will tell you, not to take away from your segment here, but I will tell you that, Italy and Rome, not one and the same, right? There
Right.
are amazing parts of Italy you can go to. And it's much like, now I've never been to New York City, but they say New York City, you've been there once. That's really all you need to do. I don't know if that's true or not, but it is interesting that going to the varsity one time was all that I needed.
That's all you needed. You know, honestly, for me, in during those years in college, I spent a lot of my time, even though I was going to business school, reading health books. So like I had these big, thick, like naturopathic books. I had herb books so I could learn about herbalism. And I even worked in like health food shops selling supplements and herbs and tinctures and salves, all those great things. So I actually was a little bit more health conscious than my peers. So it wasn't like, yeah, let's go to the varsity. Didn't really excite me. It was like, oh my God, no, I'm going to like gain all this weight if I go there. So yeah, but it is delicious.
Yeah. You know, our enrichers are probably sitting here right now, as is Tim, more than likely, like, what is the varsity? Like, what's the deal? Like, what's like, is this something that everybody else knows about and I don't know? So why don't you, since it was right down the road from you, why don't you talk a little bit about what the varsity is and what the specialty of them?
Yeah. So essentially it's a hot dog, hamburger, French fry kind of joint, but it's special because it's been there for a really long time in downtown Atlanta. And you can get hot dogs that are covered in chili and cheese and all the calories that you need in a day in one meal. And people just rave about it. And you go and you get this hat, this paper white hat, and that's just, it makes it all special. I mean, there's a million really special places in Atlanta, but for some reason, when you hear Atlanta, you think about the Coke, factory, or, Coca-Cola being headquartered there. And then you think about the varsity. So if you've never been, definitely go. But I think, after that one visit, you'll be good.
So it sounds like the varsity has very good marketing.
Yes, they do. Exactly. That's what it comes down to.
And that's what it boils about. You can't be a secret agent. You have to have really good marketing. Then you can be terrible at what you do and you still do well.
Yep.
And you get better faster because you have more clients and leads to work with.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah. So, but there was, I'm assuming though, growing up and as you ended up, seeking out something, not that you're looking for fintech necessarily, but I would venture a guess that you were probably almost always headed down that sort of direction, like an area of marketing or sales. Because you are, you're outgoing. And what is your official title at Snappy Kraken?
So I'm the vice president of enterprise development, which basically means I get to work really closely with all of our enterprise partners, including CSI Financial, and then also just, compliance, due diligence, making sure that we can really sell into the larger financial organizations in our industry, which is, it's a process in itself versus, selling directly to advisors, which is, in my opinion, a lot more fun, but I do love what I get to do.
Yeah. So you ended up at Snappy Kraken. You were always going to be in technology one way or the other.
Yes.
And I know that we're going to be talking about your, going back a little bit further, and we talked about the doula thing. We're going to definitely be hitting that in segment number 3. But what was your attraction to, you were healthier than your peers were and everything? Was that just something that like you grew up with, that you were surrounded with that, and it was just sort of a natural progression and you followed suit? And talk a little bit about that.
Yes and no. So my mom was always pretty health conscious. Like she knew things, and I feel like she planted seeds along the way. Like she talked to me about GMOs before I even knew what the heck GMOs were. And, it would always be like, oh, you have pink eye? Well, we're going to go pull a flower out the backyard and boil it and put it in your eye kind of thing. So it was like between food and medicine, she'd always kind of planted some seeds. It wasn't until high school, though, where I had, high school boyfriend. We ate McDonald's every day after school, and I gained like 20 pounds. And I was like, oh, crap, this does not look good on me because I'm very petite. So I found this book called Skinny Bitch. I don't know if we'll have to edit that piece out, but it really changed my view on food. And I was like, oh, my God, I'm supposed to be reading labels. Oh, crap, they're putting like chemicals in our food. oh my God, this is making me fat. Like, holy crap. So that all changed it for me. It was really that turning point in high school where I just was so desperate to like lose all that weight and get myself back. That's when I really decided like, okay, now I'm in this world, and it just like, you keep digging and digging and digging. And man, all these years later, and I'm like, the things I still like learn today, it's incredible. Like, science is always evolving. And so we're always learning, new things about the body and food and how certain things function. But I don't know, maybe Tim can say the same, but I have literally been down every diet path that exists. I've pretty much tried it all. Keto, carnivore, like, fruits only, vegan, vegetarian. I've done it all. And it's so interesting how actually it's just, you take it back to the basics is like the best dieting advice that I could give. So yeah. And yeah, I kind of went on a tangent there, but yeah, that's probably high school is when it really peaked.
Yeah, that's good. So just out of curiosity, you're because my wife is like with me, she's always making sure I'm staying on point and doing this. And she's like, we got to have the big guy, that's what she calls me. And so she's always making sure she's got me watching my macros, and she's got me, eating lean and eating this. And Tim, of course, gets on to me. I was just promoting my glass bottle water, right? Which we'll talk about that. And glass is a huge addition for me. So I wanted to show him off my bottle that I'm drinking out of. But so did your boyfriend have any influence on you in a negative way, and then you helped him out, or I'm just wondering, like, is that something you did together? And because obviously you're probably, my guess is he was gaining weight too, because if you're eating McDonald's every day, is that something you started trying to trim the fat, so to speak, together?
So it's funny, he wasn't gaining any weight. Yeah. Women, we struggle a little bit more in that department because we're so complex, hormonally speaking. But no, he didn't get on board. And that was the first time I realized that you cannot change a man. A man has to change himself. So that's when I learned that lesson in my life.
Tim, is that true?
Kind of. I also believe that you have to, change yourself, and then sometimes they'll see your changes and then they'll come along, or they might not. It depends, or they might come along later. Exactly.
That's true. Yeah. He never came along, but we also broke up. So
see ya. Yeah. Well, it wasn't a fit.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's a good time. Let's take a quick break. When we get back, let's get into Snappy Kraken and how everybody over at CSI Financial, why they're raving about it and why you're here on the podcast with us today. We'll be right back.
Are you concerned about being able to get all of your affairs in order during this trying time? Are you troubled by what would happen if you ever became incapacitated? Maybe you've been procrastinating in the past to address these issues, but now, more than ever before, you know just how important it is to get everything documented. Well, don't worry, because we can get you taken care of right from the comfort of your own home. Welcome to the revolutionary My Life Card Plan estate plan processing platform, home of the last estate plan you'll ever need. We are very pleased you are here, and rest assured, we can offer you a complete estate planning experience regardless of where in the 50 states you may live. Our unique transformational system combines efficiency, convenience, and professional support at levels you never thought possible for setting up your estate plan. Moreover, we will provide you with powerful, user-friendly dynamics that put you in total control of your plan throughout your lifetime. Call us today at 888-316-6040 or go to www.csifinancialgroup.com, and our team of specialists will be there to assist you every step of the way.
What's up, Enrichers? Tim James here with my co-host Carter Wilcox and in-house Diana Cabrices.
Woo.
For those of you that are habla español, that's a Spanish name, beautiful name. We're glad to have you on today. So why don't you just get into like, you know, we know you work at Snappy Kraken. What is it and why would a financial advisor want to implement that in their practice?
Yeah, absolutely. So Snappy Kraken, we are automated growth for advisors. Basically what that means is we're a marketing company, but we're like a two-part marketing company. So we have technology and we have content. And when you're an advisor, it's one thing to have, you know, content, great content especially, but how do you really get that out to all your prospects and your clients in a scalable way? That's where the automation comes in. So it's two parts to your marketing game plan, your marketing strategy. We actually create all of our content in-house. So that is where we are a bit different from most of the other marketing companies in this space that work with financial advisors directly. So we've got, you know, subject matter experts that have, you know, had years of experience in the industry. They've been advisors themselves. They've been advertising principals themselves, all across the board, super robust. Designers, copywriters, market researchers. And we take content and we build it every single month for our advisors. In fact, we spend about 100 hours on average on just one marketing campaign because these are designed to really run for 3, 4, 8, 12 weeks long. So we're building the content, we test it, we put it through split testing groups, and then we put it into the hands of the advisor. Then they utilize our technology to actually automate all that content, prospects, clients. And what we really like to help them focus on is an actual strategy. That's probably the third piece of what makes a marketing program successful. Content, automation, but you really need strategy. So we have this framework that we've developed. It's called the Cold to Gold framework. And essentially what that is, you know, online, digitally speaking, how do you take a complete stranger who just learned about your firm, maybe through social or a paid ad, to, oh my gosh, I'm a raving fan of you, I'm a client, and I'm referring business back to you. There's about 5 to 6 steps within, we call them phases, of that journey for your clients, for your buyers. So we're building content for those stages, and we really help our advisors every single month make sure they're pushing their leads, nurturing their prospects, engaging their clients, all through that framework. You know, we started back in 2016. At this point, we're a mature startup. We're growing super fast. And what's really exciting to share is we just secured our Series A funding round of $6 million. So we are like skyrocketing right now, top ranked, and you know, super excited to partner with CSI Financial.
So, as are we. And Tim, you know, you've been my co-host on here, and you've been hearing about CSI Financial Group for 8 months. I mean, I know we go way back before we even decided to start our own podcast together. But you know, the one thing, the theme along the way has always been staying laser focused on client acquisition for our advisor partners, because in our space, predominantly, you know, the way that advisors are engaged, it's usually talking about a product, sell my product. But guess what? Your prospects or your clients, that's the low bar. They already know you got products to sell them. That's not anything new under the sun. And just because it's a little bit of a twist in the widget or whatever, that's one thing. But it's that continuous, flow of information and delivering value every chance that they get. Our entire infrastructure and our foundational approach is estate planning. And that's something that I know that most advisors don't even deal in, which is why we bet the farm on delivering everything where estate planning and having a solution, not just the problem. It's one thing to have a problem. It's another thing to actually have a solution. So Tim, you've really seen the different vendors that we've had come on here, different advisor partners that come on here and everything. And the theme over and over and over again is how do you continually stay in front of, acquire clients, and then ultimately nurture them. When I found Snappy Kraken, I was like, it's turnkey. Like for me, that was easy. Hitting the easy button. Like, this is exactly what I've been looking for. And whenever I met, let's name drop Michael Guido, He was the very first person that I first started talking to. I'm like, well, how can we partner together? And then he goes, oh, I got a great team. I'll introduce you to Rosalie and Diana and yada, yada, yada. And then here we are. We just did our very first launch, the Cold to Gold launch with our advisor partner network just last week. And then during that presentation or before we decided to do that presentation, I said, hey, Diana, I said, would you be interested in being a guest on my podcast? He's like, oh, you have a podcast. So anyway, it was one of those things. It was just such a perfect fit. Snappy Kraken, the philosophical alignment for what we're trying to accomplish it really was for me like hitting the easy button. So for all of you enrichers that are out there that are listening, if you want to get more information, I know that we will make sure in our descriptives, if you will, when we launch this officially, we'll make sure that we have the landing page that allows you to go there to learn more about Snappy Kraken. So I know I said just a whole bunch right there, Diana, but I have to tell you, it has been, for me, it was a godsend because I was trying to create a bunch of these things myself because I know that you need to leverage, technology, but you have to have a process and everything that it does. And that's the part for me that I was super encouraged by and compelled me to try to find an enterprise agreement with Snappy Kraken.
Yeah, Carter, I love your enthusiasm. We need you on our website, I swear. But you're exactly right. Like so many of the advisors that have come to us, we can pretty much like categorize them in 3 buckets, right? Either they've never done any online marketing and they have no idea where to start, or they have done marketing, but they've just tried building things themselves. They spend tons of money in different tools because you need like a bunch of different tools to do what we do. You really need a 6-person marketing team to do what we do full time. Wasted lots of money. They've been promised, silver bullets for marketing programs. That just doesn't exist. Marketing is a long game. Or they've used content that it's not strategic. It's not visually appealing. It's not engaging, and they don't get any responses. It's like crickets. And they're like, I'm using content that's bland, it's canned, and I'm getting ignored. And so we just say, hey, like we've built an entire program around these pain points. But for some advisors, it's just, it's almost like, wow, well, this sounds too good to be true. Well, what do I really have to do to make this work? And it's like, maybe it is too good to be true in your eyes, but we just need you to commit a little time. Put in that 1 hour a month, you will be successful with our program. We are so big on data at Snappy Kraken. I mentioned it earlier. All of our campaigns, we take them, we look at the data, we publish a report with that data every single year. It's our State of Digital Marketing report. And in our latest report for 2021, we found that you're not going to get at least 30% of the conversions that you could get from a piece of content on that first send. You've got to keep following up and sending and sending and sending, but you can't make it look generic. So how do you actually do that as an advisor on your own? That would take hours and hours every single week, every single day to actually do that. And they're not doing that. So yeah, I agree with you. It's a turnkey system. You've just got to commit a little bit of time, but everything that you would need there from hiring a full-blown team is already there in our software, and we're competitively priced. Obviously being with CSI, you can get a better price, but I'm just as enthusiastic about it as you are, Carter.
Well, that's awesome. And again, whenever we spoke, originally, and then when we had our 10-minute before we did our live Cold to Gold, last week, I was just like, I was excited about you being on my podcast. I'm like, let's piggyback off of that webinar that we had that was fairly well attended. And I think that you were impressed with that. And we've already got clients, we've already got advisors for you that are like, they recognize, they're like, wait a second, I don't have to build it all. Right. Yeah. So that's been my mantra. I mean, I literally have a recruiting video where I say in the very beginning of it, if you build it, they will come. Right. Yeah. And because we do not hang our hat on products, we hang our hat on process.
Yeah.
And if you're process oriented and results driven, you've got a home at CSI Financial Group because of us partnering with companies like Client Viral and WebPrez and Snappy Kraken. So Diana, it's been, as far as, I'm glad you're excited about CSI, because CSI is just as excited about partnering up with Snappy Kraken.
Awesome. I love it.
Yeah. So Tim, I want to bring you in because the reason why we started this podcast was because you are a former wealth advisor, right? Mm-hmm. Think about the things that you've learned, what we've already built, and then think about how we're living in this digital transformation age, in this automated age, right? And we hear AI all the time. All the things that we delivered and the things you've learned about, and I just mentioned a few of them between WebPrez and Client Viral and everything. So how much do you think you would need a system in place? I mean, heck, even your own business right now, you don't have to be a financial advisor to know you need systems and staying in front of clients for your own chemical-free body, right? But as a wealth advisor and as a financial advisor, don't you think it's critically important that you have basically your own outsourced, CMO? Because that's the way I look at Snappy Kraken. Like it's our outsourced, chief marketing organization. I'm changing what the O really means, right? But I think that would be critically important for you as a former wealth advisor to have a tool like this.
Yeah, it's kind of like you can be a fisherman and you have one pole, right? Or you're competing against somebody that has 10 boats and 4 people in a boat, and they've got four poles out, and they're able to move to different. I mean, it's just not even comparable. Like looking back, I remember when before I started working with my buddy Jeff Dixon's firm, because that made sense to me because he was he's semi-retired and he wanted to retire someday, and I was like, wow, I could. He had $150,000 a year in marketing going, and at 13, big team of people, and was like, I could just take over this whole thing. That's smart, right? But when I was out on my own before that, it was like struggle. It was struggle. Yeah. It took me about a year before I was actually making fairly decent money. And I had like no systems. It was just me and a phone basically, and calling through contacts and, cold calling basically, and social media. Like there wasn't any of that, but with the technology today, you can look bigger, present better, fill rooms full of people easier. Again, present better after you fill the room, and then follow up better. Nobody has enough time. I mean, I literally had enough time just to meet with the clients, complete the damn paperwork, get it submitted properly, and just do that part. That was just enough right there. Just doing client meetings and client follow-up and following up with paperwork and getting things funded and coordinating with CPAs and coordinating with financial advisors. And then you finally get to a point where you hire your assistant and you start building your team, right? Well, a lot of the stuff you can do, there's these companies like Snappy Kraken that basically have a whole team, and they've got it all packaged up for you, and you just pay them a small fee. Like you couldn't even afford, if you hired somebody for 10 grand a month, they couldn't even do what this team can do. It's impossible.
Right.
And they're doing, and they keep systematizing it and working on it, improving it and making it, better and faster and more effective. And they're testing. They're like literally testing stuff, right? So they're testing messages and seeing, what the open rate is on like an email. And wow, it's at 12%. But then they change a headline and now they're at 22%. Well, that's now the headline that's going to be the control, and that one's going to go out. And if you're hooked up with them, you get to use that email headline or subject line. Because if you don't know how to write copy, which most people don't, then you're screwed, because you're going to write subject lines that don't interest people at all, and they're probably not going to open them. They're just not going to do it. So that's just one little thing that I see. And I just think it's like what you're doing. Like if I was back in my shoes again, starting off, I would hire CSI Financial, because you've kind of like went out and found, the Snappy Krakens of the world, and, everybody, and put them all under one place and made it really easy for people just to plug and play.
Yeah. That was always the game plan, right? So we had to, well, I mean, and here's the thing, and I probably don't say this enough on the podcast. I say it ad nauseum around here. But as I'm talking to an advisor, what I need them to get to know and understand, and Diana, you sort of alluded to this, and maybe you can talk a little bit about, your founder, Mr. Sophia over there a little bit, but I've been in your shoes, right? I've been an independent financial advisor out there in my space, the IMO recruiting space, where we recruit, advisors to come in and, piggyback and hit your start our wagon, so to speak. I knew what was missing. I knew what was lacking because I had sat across the table from Mr. and Mrs. Jones, and I knew how critically important it was to, be different. So when I started CSI Financial Group, I had my 3 things that I wanted to do different than anybody else, right? Number 1, elevate the client experience. That was critically important. Now, when I'm talking about the client, because we're so laser focused working with advisors and growing their practice, I'm not talking about the advisor. I'm talking about the advisor's clients. So elevate the client experience. Number 2, create what I call professional contrast or a differentiator, right? What makes you different? Your clients already expect you to sell them something, or prospects, they know you're trying to sell them something. So what makes you different? What's that professional contrast? And then number 3, all the tools that we've delivered, Snappy Kraken being one of them, which is why I tell my advisors, careful what you wish for. If done properly, you are going to, number 3, competitor proof those ideal clients. They're going to be yours in perpetuity. So you might want to make sure you're a little bit more selective than what you normally are, because if you're just a transactional advisor, you're just trying to get your pound of flesh. We want to have the transformational advisors who are trying to really grow a practice to be planners, not just advisors. So anyway, I know we're coming up on a
well, hey, Carter, let me share something really quick, because I had an email in my inbox from a credit union that I work with. Well, I have some accounts with them for another business, and it said upcoming workshops from Clackamas, right? It's Clackamas Federal Credit Union. Okay, well, that's not the most appealing head subject line, but I probably was going to log in to hit unsubscribe. Anyway, it says our workshops are designed to help you grow your financial knowledge in a range of areas, and our next workshops are coming up. Click the links below to learn more about each workshop and register to attend today. Number 1, estate planning virtual workshop, Thursday, May 27th. Number 2 workshop, how to manage debt, virtual workshop. So if you're a financial advisor and you're not in family succession planning, aka estate planning, that confuses everybody, and you're missing out on the boat, because even the damn local credit unions are doing it.
Oh yeah.
So it's out there.
Yeah. And we've got all the tools and all the solutions, and Snappy Kraken has been a phenomenal addition to adding the arrows in our quiver that we need.
Okay. Now I'm going to hit unsubscribe. So what were you saying, bud? You were saying something?
No. I was just saying that I know that we're getting ready to come up against a hard break and everything for our next segment. But, Diana, before we because we got the health side that we're getting into next. But, for those advisors that are out there that are wondering about where do they go, there's so many choices to choose from. What is it that Snappy Kraken is doing? I mean, you heard me talk about it, but Snappy Kraken is excited to be partnered with CSI Financial Group because
you don't have to be an expert marketer to do marketing well with Snappy Kraken. That's where a lot of advisors, they don't come to a decision. They see the other tools in the industry, and there's so much customization. It's too much customization. Then you're over customizing, and then you're losing the results, just like Tim just shared. We're already doing all the testing work for you. So you don't have to be an expert marketer. It's really actually not that hard. With Snappy Kraken, you get a whole team of success managers who are essentially marketing consultants by your side included, booking one-on-one calls with them, tuning into live workshops that we're hosting every single week. Just take our advice. Follow the experts' advice, implement it in your business as easily as possible, and then sit back and wait for those conversations to roll in. Wait for you to really put yourself out there. Let the marketing do the work up front. You don't have to cold call all day long. You don't have to follow up every single day with every single prospect. There's a time and a place for calling. There's also a time and a place where you can really have that conversation. So let the marketing do the work. Don't fear that you have to be an expert. Let us help you with all of these things. That's why we created Snappy Kraken to begin with. We know the pain points you've experienced in your marketing over all the years.
So before we go to this next break, because I brought up Robert's name, why don't you talk a little bit? And this, for me, this was the icing on the cake, because I know his background, but why don't you share? And of course, for those of you enrichers who are wanting to know more specifically, I know we're on our podcast right now, but the webinar that we just did, the Cold to Gold webinar, we've got it recorded. Make sure that you ask about that. We will get you the link so you can see on all the different things that we're talking about. More specifically, I know we're sort of 30,000 foot view in this thing, right, Diana? But yeah, talk a little bit about Robert's background and in the sort of the from the infancy stage to the implementation on Snappy Kraken, if you don't mind.
Yeah, absolutely. No, Robert Sophia, he's our CEO. He's an incredible thought leader in the financial services industry. And he's pretty much spent his entire career in marketing. He started out with some pretty big firms like Ford, for example, ran a lot of their marketing as VP. He was I think 23 years old at the time. He's a brilliant guy. And then he made his way into wealth management. Started a firm. It was a marketing consulting agency. So instead of having a SaaS business like what we have today with the technology and the automation, everything was like one client at a time, one advisor at a time. And they saw the kind of results they were getting for those advisors. And they realized we got to find a way to do this in a scalable way. And at that time, marketing automation is becoming more and more of a thing. So Robert, alongside a few of his other colleagues in that firm, he sold his portion of the firm, his ownership, walked away, and they all started Snappy Kraken. So the folks behind Snappy Kraken, they have the marketing experience. They also have the financial services experience. Robert did spend time as a registered rep. He had his own RIA for a few years. So he knows what, the business itself is. He knows how it is to be an advisor and not really know, kind of get stuck in that analysis paralysis of how do I get noticed? How do I build an email list? How do I really engage my clients to deepen those relationships? I want more meaningful relationships. Just like you said, this is not transactional relationships. This is deeper than that. And so just the masterminds behind Snappy Kraken, they, collectively, I want to say we've got 40 years of experience marketing for financial advisors. So Robert's published a few books as well. If you just Google his name, Robert Sophia, you'll find loads of articles and links, and he'll be publishing another book this year, actually, that I'd love to make sure we share with CSI Carter so everyone can benefit from that.
Perfect. Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, Tim, do you have anything else that you want to ask about Snappy Kraken before we get going to a break?
No, I just think that, people should check it out, and probably, the way I always looked at things when I was a financial advisor was, test things out for 90 days and see if it's a fit. And just to clear things up, if you're not a tech guy, when she was mentioning SaaS software, that means sold as a software, SaaS, sold as a software. So what that means is that if you have a website or whatever, if you're a technical person, maybe you have WordPress as an example, it's not like a plug-in that you're going to add to your site and slow your site down. It's a separate environment. You pay a monthly access fee, and then you get access to the whole team, all the services, everything. And that's kind of the way a lot of the good technology is going. I like the SaaS softwares because it doesn't bog down my site. And for me, because I have an e-commerce site, I don't want it to slow things down. But anyway, that's about all I got to say for that. So what we'll do is we'll take a quick break, and we get back. We're going to let Diana ask me any question about health. We'll be right back.
You want the absolute best for yourself, and you want it to be easy. That's why we created Green 85, an It helps with detoxifying the body gently. We're proud it's chemical-free, unlike almost all other supplements you'll find. Bottom line, Green 85 will get you healthier. We look forward to hearing what Green 85 did for you.
To get this product and our other amazing products, go to chemicalfreebody.com. That's chemicalfreebody.com. What's up, Enrichers? Tim James here with my co-host Carter Wilcoxon. Again in the house, we've got Diana Cabrices.
Woohoo.
Diana, thank you for being here today. Now we get to turn the tables on me, and you can ask me anything about health that you want. And I know you've geeked out a lot, so I always like a challenge. So go ahead. What would you like to ask?
Yeah, I got some challenging questions coming your way.
Cool.
Well, first things first, I just have to bring up your shirt because your shirt says, "I love when you poop." So I want to talk about that. What
Well, it's my own personal journey. So I was on the standard American diet for 37 years. My poop was basically coming out like rocks. I would bleed. It was very painful. I had leaky gut syndrome. I had to have a surgery to get an organ removed. I had acid reflux, eczema, my knees, my elbows. I was kind of a mess. My buddy gets cancer. We went to the Hippocrates Health Institute in West Palm Beach, Florida. You heard of them through your...
Yeah. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yep. So I went there and learned about detox and nutrition. I started cleaning my gut up from the inside out. And now I have, I love when I poop. So that's why we have Love When You Poop shirts, because what I found out is that there's a lot of other people out there that are struggling with bowel movements, whether it's gas or bloating or constipation or rectal bleeding. It blew me away actually when I first started doing podcasting and getting the message out there and telling my story. There are a lot of people that are bleeding when they poop, and pooping isn't fun. So what we do over here is that's like one of our main goals is to help you solve your problems, your health issues from the inside out, because you can't see it. That's been the biggest problem with people. So it's out of sight, out of mind. So we shine the light on the inside and show people how to clean up their gut, nourish it, repopulate the good bacteria, and then, and do a lot of other stuff. But that's kind of what we do over here.
Yeah. Yeah. Poop is like underrated. People don't really understand. Like you really got to pay attention to what's going on in that aspect of your life to really be able to tell what your inside health looks like. So love the shirt. I feel like I need one. But
yeah. Well, we have our swag stores coming out soon. And here's the deal is like, if you were out in nature, like a wild creature, you wouldn't have to worry about your poop and wear shirts about it. You just have nice poops. But we don't. So we're not in nature. That's the problem. People are on standard American diet, cooked food, processed food, irradiated food, all that enriched. Like if you see, why would you need your food to be enriched? Because it was de-riched. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was processed and denatured, and it was grown in nutrient deficient soils. So anyway, ask questions. I like answering questions.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that. The other day I was at the store and I was like, is enriched rice really a thing? Like this is getting out of hand.
Yeah, and when they say enriched, what that means is they sprayed it with synthetic acid-based vitamins that aren't really even vitamins. They shouldn't be calling it a vitamin. It's just enriched means they sprayed it with chemicals. That's the reality.
Yeah, essentially, and your body's like doesn't even know what to do with them, and that's a whole other story.
Yeah.
Okay, so you mentioned cleaning up your gut. So, I would say in my own health journey, I have a similar story. I feel like we all do. We're all on the SAD diet, standard American diet. It is called SAD for a reason. I have found there's people who will really rave about animal foods healing their gut. And then there's people who will rave that plant foods really heal their gut. So I'm just curious because I don't think there's ever a one size fits all approach. What is your take on that? And how did you approach cleaning up your gut more specifically?
Well, for me, when you go to Hippocrates Health Institute, they are completely raw, vegan, plant-based, and even farther, they're living foods, right? Yeah. So, I'd eaten living foods before because I had a garden growing up. So when I pick food and eat it, that's living, right? Eating sprouts, those are living foods. They're actually alive when you eat them. And that's what kind of the course is out in nature, your food. We're the only creatures that aren't eating 100% raw living food diet. Okay, now with that said, I don't think that from where we're at right now, and we've had quite a few years where people have been eating cooked foods and been, if you look back in history, people eat mostly plants, and we know that from the tooth samples. But we were also opportunists, and we would have meat from time to time. It's just not that easy to catch out in nature, right? So if you've never been a hunter or a fisherman, you go out and do it. Some of us have a better affinity for it. We've done it longer, but it's not that easy. And think about it: take away the guns, take away the bow and arrows, and you got rocks and sticks. It's a little bit harder to catch stuff. They're fast. And they can hear better, and they can see better, and they can smell better than you. So they're gone, right? So animals are pretty smart. So with that said, I think people, like you said, are individual, and I think they just have to find out what works for them. So for 8.5 years, I was a raw food vegan, and I went completely plant-based, and I tremendously changed my health. I mean, radically improved. I looked like I was basically, my body was like I was 20 again. And but then in 2008 or 2018, I decided like I'm gonna start eating some meat again. Added that back in. And I did that for about 1.5 years. And now I'm doing completely raw, well, pretty much raw plant-based again this year. So I'm really trying to fine tune like what's really works for my body. Do I need a little bit here, a little bit there? It's whatever works, right? So the problem is if somebody is like getting emotional about it because you have a chicken breast, or they get emotional about it because you have a raw salad, they've got their own issues going on. Okay?
Right. Yeah.
It's like they're just projecting onto you. Right.
Yeah.
And the problem is that, when you have things like paleo and keto and all this stuff, and then, somebody's on the standard American diet, their health's shot. And if they get on paleo, as an example, they get them off of what? Sugar and dairy.
Right.
Well, they're going to see improvements, but then they run around, paleo's the end all cure to everything.
Yeah.
Or they'll get into keto, and then they'll, they start doing some intermittent fasting, and then keto is the best thing in the world. Well, there are parts of it that are awesome. Like I would say, the best thing about keto is that it gives people the education and awareness of intermittent fasting, which is more how we were programmed to consume food. We didn't eat food every day in nature. We'd walk for 2 or 3 days, nomadic people, and then we'd find food and we'd eat it. One food. Right. Or if somebody says paleo, what do you like about paleo? I'm like, well, they get people off of dairy and sugar. Of course you're going to get better. So I didn't stop there though. I kept looking. So people just have to be open-minded. Just because you tried one thing and got you to one level, and that one level might work for you for a while. Maybe it works for 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 years, but all of a sudden it doesn't work anymore. Right. So maybe that change got you to a level and it works for a while or whatever. And then maybe you need to make another change, and it's a constant like evolution. You got to be kind of like seeing what works for you and really internalizing, because we are all individual. We all have, different experience, different exposures, different stresses, as far as like, maybe you grew up next to a chemical plant and where they made plastics and you were exposed to that. Maybe somebody else was living next to, the new 5G towers. Well, that's going to change things. Or when smartphones came in, or in smart meters, people got messed up with that. Like maybe your water's got, some problems in it, some fluoride, or, there's like Flint, Michigan, they had a water problem, right? Well, we got a water problem everywhere, actually.
Yes, we do.
So the reality is that I think everybody's different. There's different stressors, different environmental stressors and toxins and stuff like that. And there are some people, even though I promote mostly fresh foods, that's my thing, clean food. I want clean air, clean water, clean food. There's no pesticides, fungicides, herbicides. And that's why I really limit my intake of meat, because even if somebody has a grass-fed cow, somebody 30 miles away is spraying pesticides, and there's this thing called wind, and it blows it onto the grass, and the cow eats it. And those pesticides and, all this other stuff in our environment, jet fuel and automobile exhaust and all these things, they land on the plants, and then the animals consume them, and then they bioaccumulate in their fat and their muscle tissue. So when you're consuming an animal, you're preloading yourself with a lot of toxins. So that's okay if you have a really good detox plan in place and you're drinking lots of water and stuff like that, purified, restructured water, and you're taking an infrared sauna every day. And like our product has chlorella in it that helps to detox stuff. There's just a lot of things you need. We really need to be constantly detoxing all the time. But if you're going to have meat, I would suggest you chew it really, really, really well, possibly take some digestive enzymes with it, and don't mix it with a starchy carbohydrate. you need to learn proper food combining. Otherwise, you're going to have gut rot. So, don't mix meat like a hamburger with a bun. That's completely the wrong thing to do. Or, a hamburger or chicken and rice or fish and rice. Meat, the chicken or the meat, fish, protein, rice, starchy carb. You're going to create over 123 chemicals that's going to destroy your intestinal villi, those little hair-like structures lining your gut. So learning proper food combining would be very important. And I could go on about this for days, but next question.
Yeah.
Unless you want me to go on more. Any other questions?
No, I'm definitely enjoying it. I feel like as you were talking, so many more questions came into my mind. I agree with a lot of what you said. There are certain things that I may not have the same view as you totally, but that's just also because we think about it, men and women are so different biologically. We really, really are. And one thing I've learned a lot about lately is how a lot of the studies out there on health and fitness and fasting and all these different diets primarily include men in their research groups. Why? Because when you add in a woman who's cycling hormones differently every single week, that really throws things off, and you can't get more accurate results if you include them in your studies. So that is something I've learned a lot about recently. And I think, like you said, like you get to these different levels and it's been going great, and then something changes and then you've got to make tweaks. And so, I said this at the very beginning, it's like health is a consistent discovery. You're on this path of discovery. And I think, we're like the universe in that we have seasons. We change. We're not meant to be the same butterfly all year round, right? We're supposed to change. And I think that the same principle can be applied to the foods that we eat and the food groups that we eat. It's always changing. So what works for me right now, it may not work for me in 5 years, maybe after I have a baby or something like that, So on the baby topic, of course, I know we talked a little bit about the doula stuff, but even then, that's when I really started understanding, for women specifically, some animal foods are really powerful to nurture and repair tissue, especially after giving birth. But last question I'd say I have for you is, since you talk a lot about like raw foods and stuff, are you pro smoothie or pro juice or both?
Well, sure. So if somebody's going to do a juice, I recommend, vegetable juices, just simply because the high sugar content, like people don't realize, like carrot juice, a quart of carrot juice has a cup to a cup and a half of sugar in it. And same thing with beets. Beets are really good for you. They're awesome. We put our athletes on beet powders and stuff like that, and we add that in for sure. It's just moderation. You think about it, like in nature, what would you do?
Right.
Well, I would eat an orange in nature. I'm like, okay, but is that orange actually from nature? Do you know that? And they're like, huh? Because a lot of the fruits they've been hybrid. Fruits have been hybrid. They're 10 to 50 times sweeter than their origins from nature. And a lot of the fruits that we eat didn't even exist. They took this with that. They took an orange and mixed it with a tangerine or something, and they come up with something else, right?
Yeah.
And it's like some of this stuff, the fruit that we're eating today, it's not even natural. So as soon as you get off that natural path, that's where the problems begin. So for fruit juices, I would say, holidays, parties, birthdays, knock yourself out. But it's not something you want to have in a glass of orange juice every morning just because they push that crap. Because it's going to destroy your body. Highly acid, full of sugar, and the fiber's been ripped out. Number 2, the smoothies. Sure, we teach smoothies, but we make them healthy. So I use a base like avocado can be really good, and then we stay away from protein powders.
Yeah,
and those are just, even with the plant-based ones, a lot of them, they're not sprouted, they're not fermented, and then we have we're running into a lot of heavy metal issues in these plant-based proteins, and man, heavy metals don't do you a lot of good. We can get some real heavy metals in the body, like cognitive issues and birth defects and all kinds of problems like that. So make a smoothie, but and also proper food combining. If I'm making a smoothie, it would be a vegetable smoothie or it would be a fruit, but you can't mix the two. Now, the good thing about avocados is that avocados go both ways. They're a fruit vegetable, so you can have them with your cucumber and your celery, or you can have them with, and I would say berries. If you're going to do fruit, I would do berries. They're lower in sugar and they're higher in antioxidants and nutrients that way. So always go to berries if you want to do fruit. If you're an Olympic level athlete, you're a triathlete, you're really working hard, then yeah, you can throw some bananas in there. But man, bananas and dried fruit are just full of sugar.
Yeah, they are
loaded with sugar. And if you have any disease, if you're on medications or you're wanting to lose weight, you're not feeling good, you're having trouble sleeping, bananas are just too much sugar. Again, once in a while, birthday, you have a banana split or something, but you're going to pay the price tomorrow. You could have headaches, and it's like throwing gasoline on a bonfire of health. Whatever issues you have when you put sugar, it's like throwing gasoline on a bonfire. So sugar is just really, really, it's tough on the body.
It's funny because you say that like you're going to suffer tomorrow. I think a lot of us struggle when we're trying to choose what to eat in the moment. It's just all about like instant gratification. Like I need something right now. I want something good. Never thinking about the future, which is tomorrow and the next day and the next day, and how that really impacts your health. And we do that a lot in life too. I mean, fitness goals, like I want to get fit and I want to get fit right now, or I want a lot of money and I want it right now. It's all the same principles around instant gratification. It's like you've literally got to keep your mindset on what's going to happen in the future with these actions right now. So I try to incorporate that in my own diet when I'm making choices, and it's not always easy. I mean, we're not perfect. But yeah, I think I like that you shared that.
Cool. Well, let's talk about the doula deal. Can you explain to people what that is?
Yeah, I can. So, and most people don't know. So a doula is an important piece or part of your birth team. So if you're a woman and you're listening to this, when you give birth, it's, normal to have a doctor who's going to physically help you deliver that baby. It's normal to have a partner. Some cases it's not. We don't always, have partners with us. But if you do have a partner, that would be considered part of your birth team. They're supposed to be there with you. They support you through your pregnancy in some ways or the other. Maybe it's bringing you food or taking care of the animals or your other children that you might have. All those things are support. But what about when your doctor's not there and when your partner's tired or your partner needs a break too? Like, who's there to support you? And that's really what a doula is there for. So it's the other essential component of your birth team. Higher level doulas provide emotional support throughout pregnancies, but also educational support, because in the heat of the moment, you might have a doctor, especially if you're having a hospital birth, tell you, well, this is changing and this is what we're going to have to do. And you may not understand what that even means. And, what are some of the implications there? What could be some of the side effects or consequences of taking that action, whether they be positive or negative? It's your right as a birthing mom to know what's happening with your body or with your baby when you're in that type of setting. So emotional, educational, and then lastly, there is a bit of physical support involved. So we get trained on, breathing techniques, different positions that you can put yourself in to better have a baby. Like most women don't know, you're not supposed to give birth on your back. That is the worst way to try and push a child out. You're supposed to actually be on all fours or in a different kind of position, because that really, really opens up your pelvis area, your pelvic bone.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up because they put you in a hospital on your back in stirrups. It's like the worst position ever. Yeah. It's the same thing like pooping on a toilet. Toilets are insanely stupid. Like they don't even make sense. People over in Japan come over in the airports and they like stand on the toilets and then squat. And people don't realize, like, when you, just as an example, and you can explain this on the birthing for the doula stuff, but like when you poop and you're on a toilet, your colon's not lined up. It's at an angle. So simply by putting some phone books down, or these things called squatty potties or life steps, a couple names of these companies, they put your knees in the proper position. Because think about it. If you're going to go poop out in the woods, is there a toilet? No, you're going to bend down. You're going to squat down. That's how the body's designed. and you're going to be able to poop naturally. When you sit on a toilet, you slow down your poop times like 50%. And this leads to, people with hemorrhoids know this, like it's even more painful. And this pooping on a toilet leads to colon cancer. Okay. So and people are like, what? But some people dismiss this type of stuff, but it's like, no, it's not natural. What would you do in nature? You would squat. So what would you do in nature to have a baby?
Yeah, you would squat. You would literally
You would squat. You would squat.
Yep.
You would squat down like you're going to the bathroom, and you'd have your baby.
Yeah, that is the most natural way to give birth. Now, does that mean you have to give birth that way? Not always. Like, depending on your physical strength, you might not be able to. But the good news is there are even still ways on a birth bed, if you're in the hospital, to move, to raise your legs, to use certain tools like birthing balls or peanut balls to really like open up that pelvis area and have a better birth. And, women who've birthed on their backs, it's unfortunate that a lot of them have dealt with tearing down there. And it's not a fun situation. I've seen a lot of moms suffer. And then a lot of women don't even understand that, well, I'm not saying in any way it's not a good thing to have a hospital birth, because some women just need it. They're higher risk. And you just, if you feel better in that like type of environment, good for you. But some women don't even understand or know that prior to hospital birthing, which started 100 years ago, women birthed in a circle of women. We were at home and we had our aunt, our sister, our female cousin there, all there around you, supporting you, your mom through your birth. And that was your real birth team. So yeah, I could go on and on. I mean, there's so many little interesting things that you learn when you go through this doula training, but the births that I have been part of, it's always the same. It's like the husband is coming up to me like, oh my God, I couldn't have done any of this without you. Even the doctors and nurses for the hospital settings, they've even been appreciative because they also can't be in the room all the time. So overall, just makes for such a more peaceful as birthing can be.
And that's the key word right there, is peaceful.
Yeah,
because when you in the hospital environments, it creates anxiety and stress. So you actually go into fight or flight mode. This is the sympathetic nervous system. This is not a place to be for trying to have a baby at all, because it's really damaging on the child.
It is, and it floods your body with the stress hormones, which don't allow for the positive hormones, the oxy hormones, to really flood out oxytocin and create pain blockage.
Exactly.
So you're increasing the pain. Yeah.
Yeah. So the pain's actually caused by the anxiety and the nervousness and the fear that's bred into you. And it's like they scare you. Like, if this doesn't, you're not here, your child could die. And then it's like it's always fear-based, fear-mongering. And like, think about it. And then just give me an epidural, right? Put these toxins into me and my child now, right? You have your own natural blockers. You need to be, if you're in a relaxed, stressless environment, you have all these people that love you around you, you're going to have a wonderful birth. It'd probably be pretty much pain-free, and the child's going to have a better chance, and no tearing, right? Right. Everything's just going to be better. Everything always goes back to nature. We're just so far off on all this stuff. And people go, well, back in the day, all the, grandpa and grandma, great-great-great-grandma had 10 kids because only 2 would live. Well, that's because they had unsanitary living conditions. So we've got that part handled.
Got that part down, right?
So let's just get rid of the stress, get back to nature. And if we need it, we've got advanced prenatal care to help out. So, I mean, today we should be doing really well, but unfortunately right now we are sucking as a nation as far as child birthing health and death statistics and stuff like that. It's unfortunate.
Yeah, it's pretty high for such a developed nation. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Any other last questions for me? Anything cool?
Yeah.
Stumpers. You got any stumpers?
Any stumpers? Well, I would say, what is your take? Because you are so in the raw vegan living foods world, which I really admire and respect. What is your take on? There's this big trend lately. You've likely heard of it. You've probably been part of it. But there's this guy. His name is Medical Medium, and he's published a lot of books and information on celery juicing. So I'm curious if you've ever done any celery juicing, what your take is on that, if it's part of your ritual, because some people, they literally swear by it.
Yeah, yeah, I've known about that even before I think that guy was doing it. They've been at the Hippocrates Health Institute in like the 1960s. They're the ones that developed the green juice and the green drinks. They like literally invented this stuff. So their methodology, what they have at the Institute, when you go there, if you go do their educational courses, go through the clinic and all that stuff like we did, it's 25% cucumber juice, 25% celery juice, 25% sunflower sprout juice, and 25% pea sprout juice. So 50% of that juice is living when they juice it. So it's a living juice. Now, the reason they put the celery in there is because the celery is this wonderful organic sodium. It's unbelievable. And it works like an antiseptic in the lymphatic system. So especially in the beginning, when you have somebody like me that goes there and my body is rough, like it's messed up, and I'm full of acid, and I have a low oxygen environment, and I've got lots of harmful pathogens in my body, like viruses and bacteria, mold, which is a massive problem today, yeast, fungus, parasites, mutagens, cancer. All these things are in your body, and these little buggers are consuming your food and your drinks, and they're urinating and defecating in you and perpetuating more and more of the same, more acid, more low oxygen environment. So when you start cleaning all this stuff out in your lymphatic system, which is your garbage removal system, the celery juice lends a little assistance to that, because it's this natural sodium that gets in there, and it's like this antiseptic. So I think it's very important. It's very powerful, and that's why it works so well. And I think that's why he's gotten, he promotes it, because it's very powerful.
Yeah. So would you say then no celery juice on its own? You should really be combining.
No, you could do that too. And sometimes in the wintertime, cucumbers are $2.99 a pound, where you can still get celery for $1.49.
Right.
Well, the juicing's getting a little too expensive for you, then just do all celery. It's cheaper.
Yeah.
Right?
Got it.
But we need to really go back. I'll give you a few little tips here. Hopefully you'll like these. Number one, indigenous people. The people that are really healthy today are still eating over 100 varieties of foods. So if you can get 100 to 300 varieties of foods in your diet, wow. That's obviously, we've been conditioned. Like you said, the seasons change. We eat here, we eat there, we pick this, we pick that. We go with the seasons, we flow. Another one, what is the largest organ in the body? And I bet I stump you on this one.
Yeah, you're going to stump me on this one. The skin.
Well, that's what everybody thinks. It's actually the fascia in the body.
Interesting.
So go look that one up. And here's another one that's really cool. In the stomach, we have one sweetener receptor. We have 25 bitter receptors.
Yeah.
So why? Well, because that's what we've been programmed to eat. So what does that mean? We need to eat things that are more bitter, like dandelion. That's one of the main ingredients in our green juice formula is a dandelion leaf extract. So bitters, get into bitters. That's actually something we're looking into now, formulating and creating a new bitters product, because a lot of them have alcohol in them. And I would like to get one without alcohol because it burns in your mouth, right? Yeah. So anyway, those are a few things.
Love it.
I love geeking out on this stuff. So
me too. Could really keep going.
Yeah. Well, hey, if you guys don't mind, because you've taken, this full segment, it was awesome every single time. This is the reason why, Diana, that I wanted to partner up as a co-host with Tim James, because he's just a wealth of knowledge, and every single time that we have a guest on here, I learned something new, right? So I was like, hey, let's do this thing together, and it'll be a lot of fun. And, this is a perfect example of why our enrichers need to make sure that they like, share, and subscribe to the Health and Wealth Podcast Show, and make sure that whatever you do, you go to our official website, the healthandwealthpodcastshow.com, to get all of these wonderful episodes. Diana, it was fantastic having you on today. I want to go ahead, and since you guys were talking about it, it made me think about this. I'm going to share with both of you on here, and enrichers, you're going to learn a little bit about Carter Wilcoxon right now. I was born at home.
Wow.
And you made it.
Your
Diana,
mom
we made it.
Yes,
about that?
right. You're here.
So that's a little bit of inside skinny about myself, but we were talking about, doulas, and it was interesting. One of my very dear friends, a couple, another couple friends of ours that live in the same neighborhood, she just had a home water birth at home.
Yeah.
And it was awesome. And her birthday was actually yesterday. And anyway, it's just I love that it feels like maybe we're coming back around full circle on understanding there's so much knowledge that's out there that's available for us if we're just willing to learn about that. And that's what we want to deliver here on our podcast is things like this that we're talking about. And Diana, I thought it was awesome whenever I told you about it. You're like, oh, I was all about wealth and I'm all about health and everything. And I would love to be able to be on your show. So thank you for being on our Health and Wealth podcast show and delivering such wonderful health side of the equation. But on the wealth side, let's not forget Snappy Kraken and our strategic partner that we have decided to partner up with to help everybody in all of these different aspects.
And thank you so much for having me. This has been fabulous. Love chatting with the both of you. These are like the two sides of really who I am. I am health and I am wealth. So this is great. Carter, did you also want to maybe share how can people find out about Snappy Kraken that are affiliated with you to potentially learn a little bit more and get a discount?
Yeah, absolutely. So we will make sure in the description when we launch this, we're going to have our landing page that Snappy Kraken has created for CSI advisor partners, as we call you. You'll get a chance to get in there and get to find out, schedule a demo, find out all about Snappy Kraken and how it can be able to help you. But if you're a CSI Financial Group advisor, you are automatically going to get a 20% discount on the normal rate. The pricing is transparent. It's right there on the page. You're going to get to learn on why adding Snappy Kraken to your business model is necessary because you're trying to differentiate yourself. We've partnered up with Snappy Kraken. You're going to be able to find all that information out on the landing page in the description of our launch that's officially coming out this week. So, Diana, we are super pleased that you were able to be on here as our guest today. Enrichers, listen up. Another wonderful show that we had today. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, and Spotify. For my co-host, Mr. Chemical Free Body, Tim James himself, and our wonderful guest today, thank you so much, Diana Cabrices. And thank you for pronouncing or helping us be able to pronounce that properly. So make sure to come back and see us again next week on the Health and Wealth Podcast Show. I'm Carter Wilcoxon, your co-host, CSI Financial Group, advisor, partner, platform architect, and the CEO and founder of CSI Financial Group. Thank you all for joining us again today and have a fantastic rest of your week. Thank you, everybody. Hey, Enrichers. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Health and Wealth Podcast. I'm your host, Carter Wilcoxon.
And I'm your host, Tim James. And by God, we are committed to helping you guys have fat wallets, flat bellies. So tune in again for another episode and make sure to like, share, and drink a lot of water.
Or beer.
You have just listened to the Health and Wealth Podcast with Carter and Tim.